Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning. Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Gavin Courtney.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
It's a beautiful Tuesday morning, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Sun is out. It seems, I don't know if it rained last night or if it's just the moisture in the air, but we have our forecaster on the line who can tell us more.
Yep, and we are speaking to Francesca Wellington this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How about you guys?
Doing pretty well up here. Excited to hear about today's weather. Let's talk a bit about our general situation.
Okay, generally fair conditions prevail this morning, and for the rest, by mid-morning, we'll continue to see just a few light showers along the coast, and then by midday, those will disappear, becoming isolated.
Oh, okay. And what about our winds?
Okay, we'll see winds out of the east, 5 to 10 knots, and producing slight seas.
And our high temperatures for today?
Okay, we're going for a maximum of 87 along the coast, 90 inland, and 78 up in the Maya Mountains.
So it seems that all of those nice cool temperatures from last week are, we're not seeing those again, right?
That's right, it has gone up a little bit. I would still stay on the cool side because for tonight we're going for a 77 along the coast, 70 inland, and 66 up in the Maya Mountains.
Well, that's good news. What about our outlook as we go ahead into Wednesday and Thursday?
Okay, as I mentioned, we're seeing showers decreasing this afternoon tonight, and that will continue into Wednesday morning. Then Wednesday afternoon, we'll see changes, firstly over inland areas because another cold front will be approaching us. It won't cross the country, but it will come close enough to trigger off showers and probably even isolated thunderstorms through Wednesday night.
Oh, I thought we were done with rain.
Say that again, please?
I said I thought we were done with the rain.
Well, during this time of the year, it's a transition period between the wet season and the dry season. So the fronts do bring cooler temperatures, but also bring a little bit of rain, far less than what we see during the rainy season.
Yeah, well...
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, at least it won't be as bad.
No, it won't be as bad. The situation is when these fronts come and become stationary, let's say over the Yucatan Peninsula or close to us, that's when we get those rain. You know, the rain that we call Belizean snow?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's what we'll be seeing Wednesday night, and it will continue through to Friday. We'll be seeing little rain off and on.
Okay. Well, thanks for that update, Francisca, and as always, thanks for keeping us updated.
You're welcome.
All right.
Have a great day.
Thanks, and same to you. Any Rampopa?
We made it on Friday, but we'll have to get you some.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Sure. Bye-bye.
There you go.
Yep.
Some showers coming our way, of course.
I know, and you heard
You're still taking that one in, I see, right?
Yeah, I'm ready for it to be over, and I'm ready to fully get into, I guess, the holiday and Christmas season. So I don't want any rain on my parade, right?
Yeah, Christmas is 10 days away. I don't know. It's a little slow getting into the season for me. The cold front did help. I got the tree up and the decorations. But yeah, it definitely feels like a very different Christmas.
Oh, yeah,
and I know it is for many households. All right, but we got to keep moving this morning. We got our eye-opener, some motivation to keep us going for the day. And of course, or eye opener is taken from dailyom.com, and it goes like this. When we dumb ourselves down, we sell ourselves short and lose an opportunity to shed light where it is needed. The ability to go into any social situation and sense the level of consciousness in that situation is a gift. It enables us to move considerably in a world that holds people at all levels of awareness. However, there is a difference between shifting our energy to accommodate people and dumbing ourselves down to a regrettable degree. Sometimes, when we get into a particular social situation, we may feel pressure to play it small in order to fit in. Perhaps everyone is drinking or smoking excessively, engaging in gossipy small talk, or complaining bitterly about politics. It is one thing to notice this and modify our expectations, and another thing entirely to join in. When we choose to dumb ourselves down to fit in, we not only sell ourselves short, but we also lose a possible opportunity to influence the situation for the good of all concerned. Our desire to join in may come from our natural yearning to feel connected to the people around us. There is no shame in this, but being able to stand on our own, separate from the crowd, is a powerful milestone on any spiritual path.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one.
Yeah.
And I think that when the eye-opener talks about recognizing that there's a big temptation or even pressure, I should say, to fit in with a group or any group of people, wherever you may encounter them, and they're doing something perhaps that's negative or engaging in some of the activity that they were talking about, like gossip. And there's often a lot of times pressure to fit into a certain situation, and a lot of the times, even if you don't necessarily want to engage, you do it just for the sake of, like, let's say, making things easier.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like saying, like, okay, well, let me just get through this, or it's not a big deal. But you are making a sacrifice in that moment, and it can be very difficult to confront, especially if it's in a group. And I think that a lot of, when we think about in recent years, for example, there's a whole lot in terms of the issues of political correctness or something in relation to speech. And granted, things are, let's say, or people's understandings of things are changing a lot quicker than they used to, and culture is advancing at a really rapid pace. And some people, of course, you know, feel as though because of that, there's some opinions that are contrary to, like, let's say, what's mainstream, or that some people might consider politically incorrect, and it could be in a negative way, because there's ways to express confusion or lack of understanding in a situation without being negative. And a lot of times people do tend towards the latter, and the temptation to give in to that sort of thing is very strong, especially when you feel that, you know, there's a majority against you. Even if you feel like, okay, no, I'm uncomfortable with this, my opinion is different, but let me just go along with this just for the sake of, you know, saving face, or just avoiding confrontation. But I think that, well, let's say for me, right, because I'm not the most confrontational person, despite the fact that I'm an attorney. So if I see situations like that, I avoid rather than confront. So maybe I don't know if that's necessarily better, but I don't get involved. I think at the very least that that much, if you can at least make that step, and even if it's, you know, contrary to people notice that you're not getting involved, then you can just say, I don't want to get involved. You don't necessarily have to say, well, that's wrong, or that's, you know. Because then you'll start an argument.
That was actually the part that I honed in on. I think I do think, you know, sometimes we develop a sense of what works for us and what doesn't. especially in social settings. Sometimes the conversation takes a turn, or the atmosphere isn't something that you know you like or you're comfortable with, or that you don't enjoy in any way. And I usually kind of just excuse myself and find a way out. But the eye-opener pushes us further. And I think that's a powerful step. Trying to be able to respectfully offer that influence in that situation, bringing some clarity or a different point of view. Now, how people will react to that, that's a whole other story. And it takes, I think, a sense of courage to be able to be the different one in the crowd. So that's kind of what I heard this morning. But clearly, you know, sometimes people do need to hear a different perspective, because we tend to associate with people who think like us. We are attracted to people who think like us. So I think that if you are able to just get a glimpse of what the other side or someone different thinks, it just expands what you know and understand. So I think that's a really powerful part. I also think this is just a great way to communicate what we were all told in high school, especially, and that especially in your teenage years, where you want to form groups and learn that social maneuvering. You know, if you have teens, this is definitely one of the lessons that you can get and just be able to share with them, because that's a powerful message to learn then. Right?
No, absolutely.
So,
No, I was just going to say that, relating to what you said a little bit earlier, I think that it also comes from a sense of wanting to be accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you don't want to necessarily feel or show that you are the different one, because I think that part of the appeal of engaging in that sort of behavior is at least you have a group, you know? So you don't have to be alone or whatever. So even if you're uncomfortable, if you disagree, people tend to, you know, follow the herd just for the sake of acceptance.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that show. I think it still airs. About what would you do? Where they create all of these different scenarios just to see how people will react. And a lot of the time, it might be something, you know, either they're talking, you know, they're insulting somebody, bullying somebody, or saying something very sexist or racist. And the test is to see how do the people in that particular setting react. And a lot of the time, if not most of the time, the majority of people will stay silent, watch it go by, and then you have the outliers who will go and say, no, that's wrong, no, don't do that. And I think that that's sort of what the eye-opener is talking about. And if you are in a situation where you're seeing an outright injustice, or, you know, we can limit it to that, then of course, I think that that's what the eye-opener challenges us to do. And I would even say that it's almost like incumbent upon us to step in an extreme situation.
Yeah, so that is our eye-opener this morning. Lots to think about. All right, but we got to get moving into our show for today. And I know, Gavin, what's on everybody's mind right now is the COVID-19 situation. I think repeatedly we hear words like heavy, tired, frustrated, and we just keep on seeing more new cases, daily report of deaths, and a real clamor for some sort of mitigating efforts, whether from the public to adhere to what exists or from leaders to be able to implement. So today we are going to have a conversation with the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Belize, Dr. Lisa Johnson. And what she's going to do for us today is kind of put into perspective what's been happening in other parts of the world. We know a lot of countries are facing a second spike, and they're all reacting differently. What have we found, or what has been found so far, to work in being able to contain massive spikes as we're seeing in the country right now?
And for our second conversation, we're going to be shifting gears, and we're actually going to be hearing some stories and some testimony from persons who had tested positive for COVID-19, and they're going to tell us about their journey through recovery, and we're going to get their perspective. So that's also going to be interesting, because I think that a lot of the time the discussion about COVID-19, we get caught up in medical, and not only that, but just numbers. We don't necessarily think about persons as individuals.
Sure.
So so I'm pretty excited about that part of the show.
Yeah. And then to close off, it is Christmas. And we do want to keep you up to date with everything and get us ready for the season. And what is Christmas in Belize without black cake? So we are going to be making the traditional black fruit cake in the final part of the show. It's a great time to get into the kitchen and learn something new, and you can learn all about this recipe as we close off our show for today, so don't miss that. But we're going to go ahead and take our break, and when we come back, our first conversation is talking about how to reduce the spike in COVID-19 cases. That's coming up in a few. Stay tuned.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
It's a fact that your credit lasts longer when using Smart. During these times, we're all trying to find ways to cut costs and save the little resources we have. With Smart, it's easy to do that. It's a fact that with Smart, your credit lasts longer. You can call Smart to Smart and Smart to Digi using your promo credit, while with the other guy, you can only call OnNet, Digi, or BTL numbers. What does this mean? You get to call any national number using your promo credit. Your promo credit is free, so that call is also free. Know your facts. Don't be tricked by the other guy. Be smart and save your dollars.
Todos estamos en riesgo de contraer la COVID-19, por lo que es importante reconocer rápidamente los signos y síntomas de la infección. Los síntomas más comunes son fiebre, tos seca y cansancio o fatiga. Algunas personas también pueden tener dolor de garganta, dolores y molestias, congestión nasal o diarrea. Pero algunas personas también han reportado conjuntivitis, dolor de cabeza, pérdida de sabor u olor, sarpullido en la piel o un cambio en el color de los dedos de las manos o los pies. Los signos de alarma de emergencia que requieren atención médica inmediata son dificultad extrema para respirar, dolor constante y severo o presión en el pecho, confusión, dificultad para hablar o moverse, labios, rostro, dedos de las manos o de los pies azulados. Para mayor información, llame al 0800-664-2273. Protejamos nuestra salud.
Every day, young persons are infecting older and high-risk family members and friends with the COVID-19 virus. This Christmas could become the super spreader event we've all been afraid of. The end result is suffering and a horrible death. Please, do not let a couple of hours of fun cause a lifetime of mourning and pain. Practice social distancing, wash hands often, and wear your mask properly. Staying home this Christmas will ensure many more with your loved ones in the years to come. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
And we are back, and we are just getting our first conversation for this morning started, and we are bringing you, of course, our COVID-19 update. We are speaking about mitigation and efforts that we can do to perhaps contain the spread of the virus, and here to share some insight about that, we have with us Dr. Lisa Johnson, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Belize. Good morning, Dr. Johnson.
Good morning. Good morning, Gavin.
Thank
you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we're talking about the topic that's on everybody's mind. And if I could, or if we could begin by just getting your perspective, and perhaps you could describe Belize's current COVID situation in terms that perhaps our view, or that you think that our viewers should understand.
Well, and I have no inside information. I am looking at the numbers just as everyone else is. And it's clear that we have a situation of uncontrolled community spread. It's clear that we have a situation of having our health system under sustained pressure, and in fact not necessarily prepared to deal with the onslaught of cases. And we have to, after the unfortunate events of the weekend, and again, my condolences to the family of Doctors Kevin and Kenneth Guerra. It's clear that we are not doing everything we can to protect our healthcare workers, and that is not only sad, but we have a situation where patient safety is of the utmost concern, but never had in the history of medicine has the safety of the healthcare professional been so intimately linked to the safety of their patients. And so in a nutshell, that is what is happening. We have very little behavior modifications. There are some who say, okay, we were told to wear a mask, but we weren't told how to wear a mask. We have a population that spends their entire day looking on their phones and never once think to go to YouTube and type in how to wear a mask. So this unfortunately puts us in a very precarious, very precarious situation.
Yeah. Now, Gavin said earlier that a lot of times when we talk about COVID-19, we're just talking about numbers, and it's very important that we kind of bring it back home to remind everyone that we're talking about people whose lives have been impacted, whether they're isolating, whether they're hospitalized, or whether in the most tragic case they lose their lives. And so you take the number that we do have at this time of active cases, and you multiply that by the number of family members, and that's how many people are struggling right now. That's a big part of our population. Now, when you look at the numbers as a medical professional, what do you pay attention to? What are the things that stand out in the situation that we're facing right now?
Well, the geographical distribution has to play a big part in the analysis of the data. Yeah. Different countries have adopted different ways of dealing it. So, for example, in the UK, they have a tier system. And the tier system defines a level of community spread, and then also defines what are the activities that are to be implemented in that region. Yeah. So for tier 1, there's a certain amount of socializing allowed. There's a limit on the number of people who can socialize. There's a statement as to which businesses can operate, and so on. And when spread increases within that area, the area is then given a different designation. So that is one way of looking at the numbers. Now, what we get presented with every day is raw data.
Yeah.
The key thing is what is being done with that raw data. How is it being analyzed? And then from the analysis comes a plan. If there is no analysis, there will be no plan. And so one of the things that one can look at when one can studying this type of data is where is community spread most rampant.
Yeah.
The next thing is how efficient is the system at getting results back to patients or back to the general public. That plays a role in isolation and quarantine measures. So if you are tested today and told to go about your business and you don't get a positive result until 10 days later, you've been going about your business while being positive. And so the data should also be studied from that perspective. How long does it take to get a result to a person so that the appropriate activities can occur? If you have a system that is unable to get to a reasonable point, so for example, there are some countries like in New Zealand where they drastically reduce their waiting time from testing to result so that people could know what they're supposed to do. If you're in a situation where you can't do that, then it has to be a blanket statement that if you're tested, you need to isolate until I can get a result.
Yeah.
That's only, that's the logical progression from that. The other
before we
data,
move on from testing, sorry, Dr. Johnson, before we move on from testing.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask just in relation to that when you said, so the point about just knowing what to do. I think that even before the point of testing, I'm wondering, do you think that people are aware of their responsibilities just in general? I mean, in terms of what they need to do when they're going about, if they do come into close contact with a positive case, if they start to feel symptoms. I mean, in all of these different scenarios, do you think that people are aware enough, or that there has been enough to educate people on what they should be doing at every stage, or I don't know how to describe it, but in all of those different scenarios?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
That people have a set protocol that they can follow. And I don't believe that the general population has that.
Yeah.
In my interaction with other media personnel, the feedback they are getting saying that people may get that you need to wear a mask, but they don't understand if the mask gets wet, you need to change it.
Yeah.
They don't understand that if you repeatedly go from the surface, take your hand from the surface to the mask, back to the surface, back to the mask, back to the surface, back to your eyes, back to the surface, that this can produce transmission. They don't. I don't know if people understand that this is not killing only elderly people with pre-existing conditions. I sense that there is a belief that this is the flu, or that this is the common cold. And it is not the flu, it is not the common cold, and you don't want to get infected at all. For those younger people who are the feet of this disease, getting COVID and being positive and being asymptomatic is not a good thing, because we don't know the far-reaching consequences that can occur while this virus is inside of your body.
Yeah. And there are many, I think, nuances about the disease that perhaps the knowledge isn't as widespread because we don't discuss it enough, but even shedding the virus before you develop symptoms. So the day you get sick, the people you met 2, 3, 4 days before could have been,
Yes.
and most likely were, because isn't that You can explain the science to me. Isn't that the most contagious stage?
Yes, when the virus first enters the human body, its first job is to replicate itself.
Yeah.
And so it settles in, it gets into our cells using those little prongs that you see on the graphic.
Yeah.
Gets into our cells and then instructs our cells to make more virus particles.
Yeah.
Then those virus particles are released into the bloodstream and go on to produce the cytokine storm. When the virus particles, they set up a little factory, and you are the assembly line. And as they're doing that and ramping up production, you start to shed the virus. And that's when you become infectious and contagious, and you are able to transmit this disease. What, of course, we don't know is why some people get to the point where they're shedding the virus, but it's not causing immediate or acute problems for them. That is the asymptomatic population.
Yeah. Yeah. So even before the loss of sense of taste or smell, there's the time before that you are actually transmitting to other people.
Yes.
Let's go back to this.
You are replicating and transmitting.
And I wanted to use that as a jumping point to ask about the testing. Now, let me just ask you directly. We have heard that there's more testing happening, so that's why we're seeing more cases. What are your, I mean, how do you explain this? Is this what happened scientifically?
Yes, this was what was supposed to have been happening from the very start. Mm-hmm. All those countries that have been more successful than others in containing the virus have tested wildly and indiscriminately. They have just gone out to their populations and tested. And if they've found a cluster in a neighborhood, they tested the entire neighborhood. In South Korea, where they had one of the initial outbreaks, that's what they did. They poured everything into testing, identifying people. Because what needs to happen, and what I fear has happened, is that we tested and then we turned and we started testing other people, and not realizing that we need to manage the positive cases. The positive cases cannot be left on their own to figure out what to do. The system needs to hold their hand and be with them and say, okay, you're positive, therefore this is what we recommend for you to do. What is your housing situation?
Yeah.
And then deal with that family. The system might not be able to pay for everything, but the system must guide people so that they know what to do, what are their options, what are their choices, what is the best thing for their 5-year-old child, what is the best thing for the 90-year-old grandmother that may be living in the same home. People need guidance, and for that, it's a follow-up that needs to occur of all your positive cases. The Belize's advantage has always been in cases like this, and in this sense, our low population. And we should have been with our positive cases, guiding them, assessing them, making sure that people sought medical attention at key points in the progression of their disease.
But before you get there, though, I think the realities of our healthcare system and how prepared it was started to show itself in August when we saw that first spike. It was clear. That's when we started seeing the delays in testing that has just grown since then.
Yes.
We've heard stories of 5 days, 10 days, 12 days later, people getting a positive result. Negative is one thing, because I know it was clearly said we call the positives first and then we tackle the negative list. But if people are finding out even 5 days after they test that they're positive, I think based on human nature, I may not take it as seriously. If I'm asymptomatic, I may just assume I don't have it and not be as rigid with my protocols at home versus if I know immediately and will go into my room and quarantine. So testing more is definitely something, and I know you spoke about, and you'll tell us, I should say, about some of the countries that have really used expanded testing as an option, but how do you couple that with the delay that we're seeing?
Well, the PCR system has its own inbuilt delays. When the machine is used, it can only take a certain number of test samples, and that run takes many hours to produce that result. In a situation like that, one of the things that you can do is to acquire more machines to do that work. And then, of course, now that we have the rapid test, then that provides some assistance, but it is not as accurate as the PCR test. Yeah. Now, when you're in a situation, so I can relate it in the sense of practicing surgery, practicing medicine in resource-strapped situations. We were taught to treat the patient and not the test. And in many situations, someone like me has to make a decision with the information that the patient presents, with the symptoms and the signs, and my own clinical acumen to decide what to do next. Mm-hmm. In a situation where we are waiting for the result, we have to, if it is that we cannot narrow that time to less than 48 hours, then we, in a situation where it's clearly out of control, we have to then say to the test subjects, you cannot go into work. You need to isolate from your family as best as you can until we can get you a result. Mm-hmm. In the level of transmission that we are seeing within our society, we can no longer say to people, we're testing you and you can go about your business. We cannot.
Yeah.
And on that note, perhaps we can talk a little bit about something that we sort of raised earlier and Marlene just adverted to, and that's talking about actual strategies to actually contain the virus. The first step, which several acknowledge, and I think you did as well, is that the expanded testing is a good thing, but what do we do now after we've identified these positive cases? And perhaps we can also talk about what has been successful in other countries.
Well, other countries, of course, what happened in Taiwan, which is, they started off the successful countries race then. They identified the problem very quickly, and having lost some control of SARS 14, 15 years ago, they learned the lessons that they set up shop at their airports and started to screen people for temperature, started to take a travel history. They started to do things very early. They sent a team to Wuhan. They realized this is not good, and then came back home and used all the knowledge and information that they had acquired from their previous experiences with similar situations. So, and for them, it was a level of suspicion, which then led to testing and isolation until they could identify what exactly was happening with a particular person. They're also a society that that was already very familiar and very comfortable with wearing masks.
Yeah.
So that's an advantage. Yeah. Then you look at South Korea. South Korea realized that they had multiple super spreader events within the country. And because they had these multiple super spreader events, they then opened up testing, millions and millions of tests to again identify people, guide people as to what to do, and so then limit transmission in that way. In New Zealand, of course, when you're an island, it's a little easier.
Yeah.
You still have to make tough decisions, but you don't have a land border that cannot be policed along every meter. You're an island, and it's a little easier. And what they instituted was not only a severe lockdown, but a follow-up of patients.
Yeah.
They made sure that they followed people during the first 14 days, in which they would either develop symptoms and or deteriorate to the point of requiring hospitalization. Germany did the same in its first wave, but unfortunately did not seem to have been caught unawares in the second wave. And so for Germany, they have attempted to do levels of lockdown light rather than to go the full lockdown that they did earlier in the year. And their levels of lockdown light have not necessarily worked. And so they are looking at...
They just announced they're going to do a hard lockdown for Christmas.
They're going to go to a hard lockdown.
As will the
Britain,
Netherlands too.
And Britain as well. Again, they have used their tier system to progressively increase the restrictions on movement and assembly. In England, Scotland has had a better day of it in terms of handling the transmission, because they have a version of self-government, and so their first minister, their internal government has acted differently, and then the population size and population densities are different.
And cultures are different.
And cultures are different. So the Swedes decided not to lock down at all. And now they're in the situation where Norway and Finland are offering to take their critical cases if they need to. And they are revisiting the no lockdown decision that was made before. They've just closed schools until next month. They're looking.
They thought it was working, and then
they're casting. They're now naming names, because the last article I read about Sweden said, well, this epidemiologist is the one who came up with the no lockdown theory. And clearly that didn't work. And I can understand that, where a numbers person could head in that direction, but anyone who has spent any time in an intensive care unit and has a sense of the pathogenesis and the utter destruction that occurs within the body of a person with severe COVID will understand that something like that cannot have a laissez-faire solution.
So
the solutions will have to be multiple pronged.
So we have heard, and this is, I think, why people currently are saying, we need a lockdown. And I know there's a solid argument on both sides. It will contain, but we also have to look at the economic impacts. When we talk about this spike that we're seeing right now, almost, we're at 5,000 active cases, almost 200 deaths. And so we know that this situation has to be calmed down, because it will only get worse. What are your thoughts on some of the effective ways that we can mitigate the spread that we are seeing? What are some of the lessons, understanding that culturally we are very different from some of the countries that have been successful in control? We know people are still gathering. We know people are still hanging out, restaurants and bars. The people in San Pedro say, you know, the restaurants or bars are still happening like, you know, regular social life. And people are congregating at houses. We know you drink, you take off your mask. You eat, you take off your mask. Proper mask use, proper social distancing. I know you can't give us a solution, but what are your thoughts on some of the things that might work?
Well, lockdown will always have to be on the table based on what we're having here. But if we go to a lockdown, then we must use that time wisely. In the sense that if we go to a lockdown, then all efforts should be made to identify cases, pump resources into the health system, bring relief to the healthcare workers that are under pressure. That would be the reason for the lockdown. The lockdown is to put the entire society on hold, but it cannot be an inactive lockdown. It must be accompanied by significant and timely and intelligent interventions as it relates to putting resources in place to deal with the problem as we come out of lockdown. So that in that sense is never off the table. One of the things that that needs to occur, the messaging, of course, and the messaging has to be not clearly the messaging that has existed has not worked, and so there are lots of well qualified people in this country who understand messaging. I think we need to tap into those people, and we need to develop a health education campaign that puts the health system in the home with every single Belizean, where every single Belizean does not have to go very far to understand what is happening. Yeah. And I don't think we have that. I also think that people don't know what we're fighting for. We're in a war with a virus, and we do not understand the war, the
enemy.
We don't understand the enemy. We don't accept. We don't have any tools, or we're not given tools, or we don't understand the tools that are being used to fight the war. And so people need to be prepared, particularly as it relates to information about concerning their test results, that when they're positive and they're told to stay home, that the health system is there. We need to take telemedicine and telehealth and use that to be able to have daily access to people who are at risk, who are positive, and be the guide. We can't give you everything, but we can at least guide you. Then we need a level of understanding from employers that they cannot have non-frontline workers who can work from a computer at home in a cramped space with an air conditioning unit going, whose filter may or may not have changed recently this year, and then that's not contributing to us getting out of this issue. Public transportation, we've got to figure out a way how we make that as safe as possible. If it's a matter of putting more buses on the road so that there can be more social distancing on the bus, then that is what we have to do. Yeah. We can't be in lockdown forever. So we have to, if we go into lockdown, we have to come out with purpose.
That's an interesting solution for the public transportation. You know, I was thinking, I know the school buses are on contract as well. They're not being used because children aren't going to school. These are always an option that can be converted so that the buses aren't as overcrowded, because we have consistently heard people complain about that system. And as much as the bus is open, you still are so close to somebody, there can clearly be transmission. Let me bring it back to another point you mentioned earlier, though, Dr. Johnson. You called it a cytokine storm. That's what we now know COVID does to some people
Yes.
in the severe cases. Where we first thought this was just like a bronchitis that goes to a pneumonia, it is a very different situation. Can you talk to us about that? Because I think the heaviest part of this weekend was realizing that this disease that we thought only affected the elderly, and you know that comes with its own stigma in what we think of the elderly, can actually affect anybody. So let's talk about what we know and what the science can tell us up to now about how it affects us.
Well, cytokines are chemical mediators or messengers. The human body has a couple of messenger systems. One of them, the boss messenger system, is the nervous system. It gets information, the brain and the spinal cord gets information through our peripheral nerves. That is the nerves that come out to the surface, and that information goes back to the nervous system. The nervous system then directs traffic. This is how we're going to respond. Your hand is going to go into the fire, you're going to come out. So that's one messenger system.
Okay.
The cytokines are a messenger of inflammation. What was discovered about 30 years ago and what explains most acute disease processes is the systemic inflammatory response system. We encounter an enemy. The immune system encounters an enemy. The body encounters an enemy. You get a cut. A bacteria gets in. The enemy is met, and the response is to tell the rest of the body that there is an enemy present, and we need to react. The cytokines are going out there to say, hey, we need to react. However, this can occur in a modulated way, in that we react, we have a fever, there are certain other adjustments that are made by other organs, we fight the problem, it goes away. It occurs in an abnormal way in COVID, that every single cytokine that can possibly get out there and supposedly doing their messengering, but they're not actually doing their messengering. What they're doing is causing problems at the cellular level in every organ system. And because there is this storm, that's how it's described, there are too many of them and they're causing damage. So what we don't understand is why we have a storm in one person and we don't have a storm in another person.
And we still don't know anything about that yet.
We still don't know. We only can identify the pre-existing conditions, but clearly it's happening in young, fit people who are running marathons, people who are doing, well physically.
Yeah.
We don't know what the switch is.
Okay.
And just shifting gears a moment, because we don't have that much time left, and I wanted to ask you about what are your concerns in addition to the numbers that we see, but just going into really the holidays. We know that this is a time of year where people generally want to be around, their families and friends. And I think that one, the message is getting out there for persons not to socialize and not to gather, of course, but I think looking at it holistically, people, there are other concerns just because around this time of year, people just tend to be out and about more. They're doing Christmas shopping. Even if they're saying that they're not socializing, they may want to go drop off Christmas gifts or something at somebody's house. So,
hug their friend.
or, hug their friend if you haven't seen them in a long time. If you see somebody in the supermarket, who you haven't seen in a while. So can you talk a bit about what are your concerns and maybe perhaps even some recommendations for some of our viewers on how they can manage, I guess, the holiday season in a safe and responsible manner?
Well, everyone has that concern. I would recommend that people look carefully at, don't just do an activity without thinking about the activity, because I think a lot of times what happens, we fall into our usual, we may revert back to our we have reverted back to our pre-COVID activities and attitudes. Yeah. And when you put Christmas on top of that, then people will say, well, it's Christmas and this is what I usually do. And I would beg and plead with everyone to consider every single activity that you embark on and how that activity can bring harm to your loved ones and yourself. If your attitude as it relates to your own personal safety is one of don't care, I would ask and beg you to consider the welfare of those around you, your children, your partners, your parents, and to understand that if you act irresponsibly, then we can't get your children back into school. Yeah. And there are certain industries that won't get going so that the economy can get going. Mm-hmm. And I would say that there are very few people who don't have a phone. People buy their data. Use that data wisely. Use it to communicate. Use it to check in on your relatives. Understand that if you want to congregate, even in a small area, even within your family, mm-hmm. that you need to create your own personal bubble. Yeah. So if you are working from home, you hardly ever go out, then that's something good. If you are going to socialize, then it would be best for you to socialize with somebody else who doesn't go out. Mm-hmm. What you're trying to do is to keep the virus as far away from you and your circle as possible. And so if you have people who have kept to the advice, they have stayed at home, worked from home, not socialized, and so on, people can endeavor to create their own family bubbles and so on. Every adult in a household and even every teenager in a household needs to understand what the risk levels are for contact. Yeah. You need to understand that it is a combination of the three things that either lowers your risk for transmission or increases your risk for transmission. If you do not wear your mask, if you do not sanitize, and you do not social distance, and if you spend more than 15 minutes with someone without a mask, without social distancing, then your risk skyrockets.
That's right.
So in that way, I would say find other means of communication. We have them. We're using them right now. do your best to think of the welfare of your loved one
All right. Well,
before you do something.
Well, we appreciate the conversation this morning, for you being able to share with us what's happening in other parts of the world, and further explaining to us just the risks associated and what we really must keep in our minds and think about in the actions that we have as well. Thank you very much, Dr. Johnson. Stay safe.
You're most welcome. You too.
All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we are continuing with our conversations about COVID-19. This time, we get to see some of the faces of people who have tested positive. Some have recovered, and some are still isolating, and we're going to hear their stories as to what the experience has been like. So that's coming up. Please stay tuned.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
Have a holly jolly Christmas this December with NextGen. Contact us today to sign up for free service installation or reconnection and receive 1 month free on your acquired service. Celebrate the spirit of the season by entering our grand raffle. This month, new and existing customers can enter a chance to win a 40-inch smart TV or up to 3 months free bundled service with a Debo 3. Visit our office for a chance to win today. Our raffle will be drawn live on the national channel. From our NextGen family to yours, we wish you peace and joy throughout the Christmas season. NextGen, powered by Central TV and Internet. If we are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us, then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something, the Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. We are stronger together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
Why, Tony?
Boy, kid, what you going on, man?
I actually can see we can need to buy a stack of them plastic plates and cups for my grocery shop because I run low.
Boy, I stopped importing that thing since April 15th, you know. And I just ran out to the last batch, must be about like 3 weeks back, you know.
Man, do I usually have anything? What is going on?
Check this, right? under the new law, we ban all single-use plastics, so that the cups, plates, forks, spoons, and knives, all of that. Since April 15th, can't import none of them. Starting January 15, 2021, you can't manufacture them. April 15, 2021, you can't sell them. And after July 14, 2021, if you get catch with any other thing, you will get fined.
Me never know this. I guess I have to make some changes then. I have to make the customers know that anything not available. Anyways, bro. Thanks, man.
No problem, man. Take care.
The virus that causes COVID-19 may be spreading in our community. People might have the disease even if they have no symptoms at all, even when they look healthy. Because the virus needs us to spread from one person to another, we can stop it from infecting others if we practice physical distancing. That means stay at least 6 feet away from other persons. Don't shake hands or exchange hugs. Do not gather in groups. Stay home if government officials tell you to do so. Use social media or telephone to communicate. Avoid crowded and enclosed spaces. Work from home if you can. Stay home if you are sick, except to get medical care. Avoid close contact with sick people. Don't visit anyone who's sick in quarantine or in isolation. Give them a call instead. Help keep Belize safe.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And we are back, and if you're joining us now, we are just getting our second conversation for this morning started. We are still speaking about COVID-19, but we are shifting gears now. In our first conversation, we were speaking with Dr. Johnson and getting her perspective as a medical expert. But now we are going to show you some of the faces behind the numbers that we see reported every day, and we're going to be speaking about with persons who have tested positive for COVID-19, and we are going to talk about their journey that they navigated through the process. So here with us we have Casilda Bowman, who is a recovered COVID patient, and she's also the head nurse at the COVID unit at the Carl T. Sherman Memorial Hospital. We also have Maritza Leslie, who is a recovered COVID-19 patient, along with Matthew Smiling. And we also have with us Anna Carrillo, who is a COVID positive patient who is still positive for COVID-19. So everybody, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you so much for joining us. We definitely appreciate you coming here and sharing your story with all of our viewers, because we know that that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do given some of the current circumstances and some of the stigma that still exists around the virus. Now, I think we should start our conversation there, just because getting a positive diagnosis can be one of the scariest things given some of the stigma that surrounds COVID-19. So perhaps we can just start with Casilda and talk about what it was like when you first tested positive, or let's start even before that, when you suspected, or what led you to get tested, and what was your reaction when you first got the positive result?
Well, the reason I got tested was because we had exposure within the unit. One of my colleagues started to have some symptoms. He contacted me, and we got him tested, and he became positive. So I had to be tested as well, because we were in the same common environment. I started off with just a cough, and bear in mind that because I feel like we're extremely safe within our environment, I thought it was just the flu. However, I got tested. My first rapid test was negative. I started to feel worse. I got another test. A couple days later, I found out that I was positive. Progressively I got worse, though, with more symptoms.
And I would imagine that having been a nurse in the unit and seeing some of the effects firsthand, that what was your reaction like when you did get that positive test? I imagine that you must have been somewhat apprehensive or scared.
It was actually very scary because you have to think about the responsibility of, did I spread it to anyone? So that was one of the most, that really plagued my mind, wondering, did I expose anyone? I mean, I know I was very careful in what I do, how I go around people, because I stay in an isolated environment, so I don't go home to my family. However, I did expose my best friend because, like I said, my first test was negative.
Yeah.
We thought it was just the flu. And so I was feeling really bad. So I went for assistance from her. So she was helping me with food. I wasn't able to get up out the bed,
Wow.
and so finding out I was positive really started to play with my head.
Guilt.
Like, would I be responsible for, any lives being lost? Yeah. So that was a strain in itself, just finding out I was positive. And all the other symptoms, I could have handled the symptoms, but just the whole worry of, who I exposed, who could I put in this potential danger was just as worse as the symptoms for me.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That's a really interesting perspective to share. Let's move on to Matthew. Tell us your story, Matthew. How'd you find out you were sick?
I started feeling sick. I think it was a Sunday night. Yeah, and the Monday it got worse, and I just isolated myself. I quit. I stopped working from the early in the morning, and I told my staff that I think that I am positive, but I will isolate myself, and I started treating myself like I was. It wasn't until the Friday that I went and got tested, and they showed up positive. A lot of pain, a lot of fever, and that was it. Yeah. Mind you know that I have all the above underlying conditions. Heart, sugar, pressure, my main thing was my heart. I didn't panic. I attacked it. I treated it as I was sick, and I did what I had to do. I drank a lot of hot liquid. I think for like the first 5 or 6 days, that's all I did. I just drank hot liquid, hot soup, hot tea, hot coffee. When I test positive, I couldn't go on any medication because of the medication that I been taking for my heart. The only medication that Dr. Queer gave me was Tylenol for the pain, and I think it's that Flublon or something for cough, just in case that I had cough. I didn't have any cough. All I had was fever and a lot of pain. But he just told me keep drinking the hot tea and drinking hot soup, and that's what I did. After 7 days, I started feeling much better.
Yeah. So you went 5 days with symptoms before you got tested. What type of symptoms did you have?
Like I said, I had a lot of pain and a lot of fever.
Okay.
And feel bad, the normal flu symptoms.
Yeah.
But no coughing, no sneezing, no running nose.
Okay.
Nothing like that. The main thing that doctor was scared of was my breathing. I didn't have any breathing problem until I would say 12 days into it. My oxygen level dropped, and he ordered that I go to the hospital to get on oxygen, to get some oxygen. Mm-hmm. I just spent 1 night in the hospital, and they released me the next morning.
Yeah, I want to come back to that in a bit, but let's get Maritza's story.
Okay, so I started on a Sunday morning. I got up and I had a bad headache, but I thought it was maybe from hanging out the night before, and by the night I had a sore throat, and so I said, let me just take some warm or something and see if it comes off. By the Monday I was congested. My eyes were hurting. My joints were hurting. I had nerve pain. I started like different parts of my body, like the nerve was pinching. It happened for a couple hours. On Tuesday, I lost my taste and smell. I still haven't gotten it back fully. Wow. I had heart palpitation. When I found out that I was positive, because all of this was happening, I was, like I said, I was very congested. And so me not having my taste and smell, I said, let me go and get tested. And it was the Saturday morning that I tested positive. And so I went all those days thinking it was just a flu, but I also knew that, we had this virus about, and so I quarantined at home, I self-quarantined at home. And so when I went the morning, I took the test, I found out I was positive. Of course, I was very scared at that point. I started to worry about my family, because I knew I kept my bubble, to minimal people. I tried to interact with less people and so forth. And so I knew that, there wasn't a lot of people, but the thing is that my mom is sick. And so, that was my main concern. And so, I ended up having an anxiety attack. I felt like I needed to go to the hospital. I had maybe like 3 of those episodes, where my heart, it literally felt like it was out of my body. I think it was like the Tuesday, the Wednesday, and Thursday. I felt like I was having a heart attack. Like I couldn't take it, but I tried to pray about it, and it eventually passed. I took as much stuff that I could take. I kept drinking warm stuff. I drank the herb. I got a medicine from one of the doctors at BHPL, and that really helped. Actually cleared up the dry cough that I had, because that was a bit annoying. It's constant. So
Wow. All right. So let's hear from Anna now. Anna, tell us your story.
Well, actually, my one started on November 30th. I was a contact to someone that was positive, and I was informed about that through Facebook. And my manager called me and said, when you were in contact, we are going to start doing the necessary preparations and so forth. I was a little bit kind of unsure, because I felt fine, and the last time I was in contact with the person was the Thursday. So I said, okay, Sunday, it's 3-4 days, nothing is wrong. And I took it very lightly. And then the Monday, I was informed the Monday that I needed to go to get the test. So I went to the clinic, got tested. I got a rapid test and a PCR test. My rapid test came back negative. And they told me I had to go home and isolate for the results of the PCR. So I informed my office and I came home. I informed my family, I locked up. And I've been okay, I would say, for the most part. There were days that I had a headache, but being at home and being isolated, and I too, I suffer from anxiety, so I was like trying to pace myself. Then I started having this pain like right above or behind my eye, and it was just constant. And at the clinic, when I got tested, they had given us like a little care package, and with Tylenol and Benadryl and some other stuff. So I just kept popping the Tylenol once a day. And at night, then I feel like around my nose, and I thought, I said, okay, well, probably when they put in the swab, I got some damage in there. I don't know. I was making all kind of excuses, and
Because you had a negative result.
I had a negative result, and so I honestly did not have any fever. There were times that I feel like warm, but I was like, well, it's been the cold front, so you're bundled up and you have your blanket and everything else. So I take up all of those things. Then I start to sweat, and I was like, fine. And I've been doing homework with my daughter, well, her schoolwork through video. And one day I was telling her, I said, I can't even see you on the display of the camera and stuff. And she says, are you okay? And I was like, I kind of feel bad. So I logged off and I said, I'm going to go and rest. But in that entire time, and it was, honestly, I just found out on Friday that I'm positive.
How long after your PCR test did you find out?
13 days. 13 days. I waited 13 days, and I was a bit upset because there was some Facebook post about a policeman that had gotten tested the same Monday as I did, and he had died in the earlier part of that week as well, and that kind of freaked me out. And I'm like, well, how long do we have to wait? I've heard several changes over the time in terms of people getting results in 5 days, 7 days. My one took 12 days, and I've been hearing of people waiting up to 14 days. And but to me, I just had the headache. I still have the earache it's on this side. It's on my right. I have this scratchy throat, so you hear me like a little. I had laryngitis.
Wow.
And then just the hot and clammy was unbearable. But I guess I just powered through it, and I didn't know what it was, and I just didn't take it as anything else.
So you waited 13 days for your PCR result, but you'd gotten a negative rapid result.
Right. I got the rapid the Monday when I got tested, which was 4 days after being in contact.
But you isolated even though you had that negative result while you waited for the PCR.
Yes, I isolated. I just have one more family member in the home, and she isolated with me as well.
Okay.
But like I said, I mean, we stayed away from each other and all of these things. And I've been wearing a mask from the Sunday that I was called and informed that I was in contact with. Yeah.
So let me bring this back to Matthew for a while, because I think one of the things that you mentioned, Matthew, is that you ticked off a number of the high-risk conditions. What is that like for you? I think what we have heard from a lot of people, I think Maritza said it, or everyone has said it so far, is that it's a mental struggle, battling the fear of how bad it will get. When you know you have heart condition, sugar, and hypertension, what was it like for you?
Well, the first thing I told myself that I wasn't going to worry too much. I wasn't going to bring any stress or added stress on my conditions, no? In a conversation with my daughter, I just told her, listen, don't worry about me. I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to fight this. I'm not going to stress. It's just like what Maritza said. I told myself I wasn't going to have any kind of nervous breakdown or worry about it. I just did what I had to do, no? And I would try to advise that to everybody. Try as best to stay calm, and fight through it. It doesn't help to be worrying about it, to be worrying about what will happen. I mean, I know that I have a heart condition, and I can't put myself through that, no? Worrying about it. But also there were times when it got so bad for me that on a couple of occasions I started to hallucinate. One instance that I was in the bathroom in the morning and I looked at a shaver, and the shaver, I know the shaver was black and green, but it looked purple to me. I picked it up and it looked purple, and I had to tell myself, hey, that is black and green, put it down, and it's things like that. And I mentally, like you said, it's a mental struggle, but you can't let it get you. If it gets to you, then you collapse. and I did my best. Like I said, I drank as much hot liquid as possible those first 7 to 10 days, because the doctors always tell me, that the first 5 to 6 days you're supposed to start having breathing problem, difficulty breathing, heart problem, and thank God I didn't have that. Now I consider myself really lucky. I think maybe it's because I attacked it the way I treated it now. Again, I didn't kind of stress myself over it or worry too much.
And on that note, I kind of want to get a bit more perspectives on after the positive diagnosis, what life was like for all of you in quarantine or isolation, or to whatever extent you did practice that, knowing that, of course, you have families, you have loved ones, so perhaps we can start back with Casilda, and can you talk a bit about what your experience was like after you got your diagnosis? What was your everyday life like while you were in isolation or quarantine?
Okay. Well, it was really hard because I had to be isolated alone. So I'm in a hotel room because of my work situation. So being away from everybody, not being, worrying if anything happens to me, would anybody realize, kind of thing. That was one of the big question, because the symptoms was very horrible for me. Like I had 10 to 13 days of horrible symptoms. Every single symptoms that everybody mentioned, I had it. I couldn't walk to the bathroom, I couldn't shower. So just being alone in itself psychologically was hard, and for me, being in the healthcare, being a healthcare personnel, like I know the patterns of what happens, and so being alone really didn't help for that. That was hard for me, and yes, I must say that I have colleagues, family, everybody reached out every single day, checking, checks and stuff like that. But still, there was something in the back of my mind, wondering if something happens, just being alone and then being locked up, you can't go out, you can't open the door. It's a lot, just being confined to a room. Some people are at home and you can, probably talk through the door and you'll hear somebody else, but I'm just in a hotel room by myself. And that was the hardest part for me,
And with symptoms?
When symptoms progressed worse, because for me, I had like I said, I had a lot of symptoms. So when it became scary was when my oxygen saturation started to fall. And then, like I say, I know what comes next.
Yeah.
And I had to also keep it together because I can't let everybody on the outside start to worry about, of things that they don't have any control because they can't do much, so like I had to still be strong about it, alone, kind of thing. I don't know if you...
No, I hear that, and I can only imagine how challenging it is to go to bed at night with symptoms and be concerned of your own health, and the toll that takes. We know that anxiety is something that's on the rise everywhere. We've heard stories of people in isolation that it can be a struggle. So Maritza, I think you noted too that you had 3 panic attacks?
Yes. What happened was when I found out on day 7 that I was positive, of course I was home, like I said, I was there already, like 8 days. And so of course, the worry started to kick in, my mental health really got affected at that point in time because I had to worry about my family because I knew that I was around them, so that one part of it. And then, after the 14 days had passed for them, that gave me a little ease, but then I actually was in isolation for 35 days, so it was very difficult.
Wait, hold on. Why were you in isolation for 35 days?
because I took my test. I got sick on the 1st of November. That's when the symptoms really started.
Yeah.
I took the test on the 7th. I had to do a retest on the 21st, and I got my results on the 4th of December. Yeah, and so I was home the entire time because, for me, I like I said, I don't really go anywhere except to my parents' house. And so, that was my main concern. I wasn't going to go over there if I knew that I was not negative, even though I read all kind of, and that's another thing, being at home, I read all sorts of documents from World Health, from news, and while it helped me in the sense that I knew a lot of stuff about it, it also played a lot on my mind, because then I start to wonder. I read this article that said in the second week you get, sometimes some people get real worse, and I guess maybe that was the time that I had the first anxiety attack. I was in the room and I just got up like somebody was choking me and I couldn't breathe. My oxygen level fell. I told him, I got up and I said to my husband, because of course, it was only 2 of us in the house, and that made it better, because I could have quarantined at home. But I got up and I said, I think I need to go to the hospital. I can't catch my breath. And, he said, a lot of people go to the hospital and they don't come back, and I guess that's what made me try to calm down. And I said, okay, let me, just try to pray about this. Just try to, I don't know. I eventually calmed down and, I fell asleep. When I woke up back the other morning, though, I still had the heart palpitation for maybe half of the day, So like I said, it was about 3 of those that I had. And then, like I said, locking up so many days, not being able to come out, not being able to do anything for yourself, and then you're at home and you're worried also about your family,
Of course.
So yes.
Of course. Can I ask that did anybody experience any stigma or discrimination? I mean, you have to go back to work, or maybe your family members vex because you get it and bring it home. I know, Matthew, you have your business. What was it like from the public in how they reacted to your diagnosis?
On most of the reaction is positive towards the disease, but there are some that you get some negative feedback. They don't want to come close to you. They cross the other side of the street. When they see you, stuff like that, they wondering if my business is sanitized enough. Thanks to Carpet Care, they had put it out on Facebook when they were sanitizing my business. Yeah. So, but again, we can't live with the negativity. I always say that, like what Miss Lady just mentioned, that there's a lot of literature out there about it, and I urge people to educate themselves about this disease, because in reality we have to live with this for another 2, maybe 3 years, so it's only best that we educate ourselves and we live. We can't be, I've been discriminated against. My worker, one of them that tests positive, has been discriminated against, but I try to tell them, hey, you gotta live. You can't make the negativity bring you down, we have to go on. We educate ourselves and we move on.
Yeah. Anybody else had a different experience or similar?
In my case, because like I said, I did not know, but at home we did, my sister and I that was together, I just used the bathroom and I would go and Clorox and spray down everything in the bathroom. If I go into the kitchen to warm my teas or eat something or get something to eat, I would spray down everywhere, and then she would come after me and spray after me just to ensure that nothing is lingering and I'm not touching. Yeah. I am, in my mind, I'm because I'm in isolation, I basically put myself in this state that anything can happen, and that long wait was just enough for me to say, okay, I'm not going to do this or that. I didn't even want to step out of my house. I think it was a little bit about more like internal stigma on myself more than people, because when I did post it that I was positive, I was not in contact with anyone for about 12 days. I except for my sister, she got tested and she's negative. But the more it was about me, and I said to myself, at least I didn't infect nobody. I have children, and from March my children have been with my mom in and basically they're in isolation because we don't go home as often as we need to be going, because we were always in fear, because we still have to work, we still have to do all of these things. But it to me was more of an internal process. I always thought about what if I
You don't want to have that guilt.
Yeah, I don't want to have that guilt. And I think I had a meltdown on Saturday, hearing the sirens and everything else, and I just couldn't. At that moment, it hit. The denial is over, and the acceptance is kicking in that that I'm positive, but it was mostly more on internally what was going on, this mental battle.
How are you feeling today, Anna?
I'm good. I just have like a slight pressure on my right side of my face and my ear. My throat is a little bit scratchy, but I've been having this on and off laryngitis from probably like the Tuesday or Wednesday after I got tested. But I've been I've been using what the clinic gave me, which is the Tylenol and the cough medicine. And other than that, that's it.
Well, see, Matthew says it's all hot things all day long, right? Matthew, that's the trick?
I mean, my advice to people is treat this, even if you haven't gotten it, treat it as treat yourself as you have it. Keep drinking those hot things. You know, even if it's hot water, boil the hot water and drink the hot water.
And, you know, just to shift gears a little bit, another thing that is perhaps even less known about the effects of COVID-19 are those long-term effects. And even after you've completed your isolation and you get your negative test, a lot of people still struggle or suffer from long-term symptoms that show up. Maritza, earlier you said that you still hadn't fully gotten your smell and taste back, I think. And I'm just wondering if we can just open up that conversation about the long-term effects that COVID has had. So perhaps you can start or continue with that, Maritza, how it has affected you and your health even after you've been even gotten a negative result.
Okay. Yes. With the taste and smell, like I mentioned, that happened to me like maybe the second, third day of symptoms, and since then I have maybe recovered, I'd say 75% of my smell and maybe like 50% of my taste. I also had a lot of pain in my kidneys and in my back, and so even after I got my results, I ended up going to the doctor, you know, just to check on my heart, because I also had like this heaviness in my heart. I'm not sure if maybe it's because I was worried too much. You know, I had to go and check. Everything came out well, but of course, you're not fully, you don't feel fully 100% like you used to, because for example, I would come to work maybe like by 2, 3 in the afternoon. I'm extremely exhausted. That didn't used to happen before. You know, like I said, I still do have a little bit of the pain in my back and the taste and the smell. So yes, I do. And also what happened to me was couple months before being tested positive, they told me, one day I was at the doctor and, you know, just to get my regular checkup, and that's why I had taken to Facebook on the weekend, because I said, you know, something, a lot of people are not aware of what really happens while you're sick and after, you know, and how important it is to be able to reach out to people who are sick, you know. for their mental health, for their, peace of mind, to give them hope, that things, they don't have to die from this virus, take care of yourself. And so I said, for me, like I said, I started having also, my pressure was going up. I didn't used to have that before, so it took a lot out of me. And, I said, let me try to, even if I can go to just one person so that they can, get their self-checkup, help themselves, prepare themselves for this, boost their immune system, and so that was my main thing, because some of us don't even know we have these underlying conditions until this virus hits us.
That's true. That's true. My final question, because I think, do you know where and how you got the virus? Because I think that everybody, we all think we're doing enough. We all think we're being as safe as possible. And even the safest protocols that you have, there's always a chance for exposure. You're going to let your guard down. Were you ever able to identify, and what's your advice to people as we continue to see these growing number of cases as to how to stay safe?
Well, for me, I still cannot pinpoint exactly where I got this virus from, but I know that I was very careful and I limited the people that I had contact with. I do know that I was out the weekend prior to me starting with symptoms, and so for me, I was very careful. I even took training for this COVID, how to clean your house, how to take care of yourself. I was so scared of this thing. I even felt like I catch this COVID maybe 5-6 times before I actually catch it. For me, I'm not sure, but I just want to let people know, it's the Christmas season, the holidays are coming up, when you get together and you party, you lose focus, you're not aware of, what you're doing like you normally are when you are, in your full senses, basically. I just want to tell them, whilst I know that, we want to be around our families and so forth, be careful what you do and the places you go, because when you lose focus, that's when, everything goes, you stop washing your hands, you stop sanitizing your hands, and then, until you catch this thing, then you realize, what, I shouldn't have done that, and so that's my advice to them. I also say, I really want people to reach out to one another, if you know of someone who have this virus, because at some point I was ashamed, and so I didn't want to reach out to anyone. I told everybody that I had come in contact with, but I didn't want to reach out to anybody because I was ashamed. I didn't know what they would think, if they would scorn me, But I want to tell them, if you know of somebody, help them, maybe you might have a remedy that help you, help them, For me, I said, this Christmas, I normally treat myself for Christmas, and I said, well, this Christmas, I'm getting myself my vitamins, my pressure machine, things to take care of myself. You have to have a plan for our families,
That's true. So and I think that's a valid point. Have a plan for when it happens. Anybody else in being able to recognize the source of COVID, and perhaps sometimes that you just don't know where you're going to get it from?
Well, I didn't worry where I got it from. I can't put my hand on anything. I was always careful. My brother lives not with me, but whenever he comes, I always chastises him. I spray him down. He keeps laughing at me and telling me that I worry too much, but I was careful. I knew, due to the nature of my business, I handle a lot of money, and they say that money could be a transport of it, So it's hard for me to say, well, I got it from someone or somewhere, but I didn't worry about that. I just dealt with my situation, My advice to people is that even if you haven't gotten it and you think that you're not in contact with anybody, but treat yourself like you have it already, Start taking precautions, drinking that the hot liquid eating, hot soup, things like that, because all the literature behind it is that the heat, if the virus is in you, the heat will kill it, so that it's simple things that we need to do, and mainly take care of ourselves.
Yes.
And Casilda, any advice from you as a healthcare worker on how we can best protect ourselves?
Yeah, like for example, the question I was asked, one of the important things that I want people to really take home or to remember is that to not let your guard down. For example, I was able to recognize the exposure time, right? However, also in recognizing that, I was also able to realize that I had become maybe complacent in the sense that I felt safe. You understand? So because in feeling safe in our environment, I felt like I could have taken down my guard a little bit. So like a lot of stuff that I was doing in terms of, we were still following protocols in the hospital. We were doing what was right. However, when we were coming together, there were times when we were, we're safe, we're all protected. We can talk to each other without a mask because, we think we are okay.
Yeah.
And that was what happened. Whenever you let down your guard and think that, it's okay, and that is where it is easier for us to get exposed. And that was what happened to us. And so it really helps me for me to be able to, I'm back in the COVID unit, so I'm able to really make sure that protocols are followed and we do things and we always keep our guard up, just to decrease our exposure within the healthcare workers, just to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah.
So that's, and then of course, it's important that we wear a mask. The mask will help us, will help whoever you are around you guys. Keep a 6 foot distance and wash your hands. It's very important. I mean, my hands is totally gold from my elbow down from the amount of hand sanitization that I all my hair was black. No, it's gold, right? So that's because I wash my hands a lot. And so that's important. Wash your hands, keep your mask on, keep your distance. If you don't need to be in a crowd, then don't be in a crowd. Christmas is around the bend and everybody wants to be together. But best that we have many more Christmas to spend together than just this one that we're going to sacrifice.
That's right. That's right. And final advice, Anna, you can close us off for this segment.
Well, in terms of who I was in contact with, it was, I guess I go back to what the nurse said. It can be anybody, but I can pin it down to one person that was in my office that I lent my phone to, my office phone, and I really don't know. That's all it took.
Wow.
Maybe I touched the doorknob because it was closer to 5. So I remember, I go through all these mental thoughts of how it happened and all of these things. But and that was the one that I can pin it down to. That was the closest contact that I've had with anyone. In terms of
advice,
my advice is I too did everything. I mean, at my home we have our Clorox water at the door. We dip our shoes in. We take off our shoes outside and we leave it outside. The clothes, as you just say hi and you walk in, you take a shower, you take out your clothes, and all of these things. But I think because of Christmas and everybody again wants to be with their families. I want to be with my family. I haven't seen my kids since mid-November. And my husband and everybody else, because we are in different locations at the moment. It's just to be more careful and think. I remember when I used to work be educator in HIV and so forth, we used to talk about universal precautions. Take everybody as they are positive, anybody you're in contact with. And we go back to the same thing. I mean, we have our mask, wear our mask. wash your hands. I had wear, similar to the nurse, where between my fingers, it's so, I don't want to say raw, but it's so sensitive because of all the hand sanitizer, all this, the washing, everything that has happened. And also spray down everywhere that you can think. If you have, I mean, you're sharing space with other people, be considerate of that person as well. I like I said, I only had one person, but if I think about the people at work, we talk about 20, 30 people at, you know, at some point. But just think about how you felt when you were in this position, or if you've heard of somebody in a similar situation, and then just up it 10%. I mean 100% more. I mean times over and over and over. Just up it, because you just never know. And then also in this case, they're talking to us about well, the person who has been in contact with me through Ministry of Health has been talking about reinfection. And it's real as well. And I said, okay, what if I get reinfected when I'm out again? And, you know, that is the concern that I have. I think about unnecessary exposure to other people.
It's not worth it.
Not worth it, no.
All right. Well, we appreciate you all being brave enough to come on TV and share your story. We talk about the numbers every day, but these are human beings. These are people going through experiences like yours. And I think you've done two things. You've helped other people understand that it's okay to publicly talk about their story, that anybody can get it, but also for those who are at home who haven't come in contact, to know that we have to stay extra vigilant. Thank you all for sharing your stories with us, and continue to stay safe.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And with that, for our viewers at home, it's time to get back into Christmas programming.
Yep. And we are going to be talking about one of the favorite treats of the season, one of my favorite treats for sure. We're going to be learning how to make black cake when we come back. So if you want to see that, and I know you do, please stay tuned, and we'll be right back after the break.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Smart at you this December with the We Kinda Christmas promotion. Starting December 4th, you can avoid the rush and be safe while visiting our showrooms to get these one-of-a-kind deals.
Devices start as low as $70 with the Evo Star Mobile. Other devices like the Nokia 2V for just $165, Motorola E6 for only $235, and Samsung A51 for $675. Check this out. The first 10 persons to purchase any of our iPhone 7s get 50% off that device. Each device comes with 50 SMS, $10 promo credit, plus 2 gigabytes of data, all for free.
Looking for tablets? Then take advantage of the Amazon Kindle 8-inch for $155. Or get a Samsung Tab A10.
All phones come with a starter pack, free SMS, credit and data, plus an extra Christmas treat of 2 gigabytes data, a package valued at over $27 for free.
Now that's We Kinda prices, and you can only get them at Smart.
The virus that causes COVID-19 may be spreading in our community. People might have the disease even if they have no symptoms at all, even when they look healthy. Because the virus needs us to spread from one person to another, we can stop it from infecting others if we practice physical distancing. That means stay at least 6 feet away from other persons. Don't shake hands or exchange hugs. Do not gather in groups. Stay home if government officials tell you to do so. Use social media or telephone to communicate. Avoid crowded and enclosed spaces. Work from home if you can. Stay home if you are sick, except to get medical care. Avoid close contact with sick people. Don't visit anyone who's sick in quarantine or in isolation. Give them a call instead. Help keep Belize safe.
Why, Tony?
Why, Keith? What are you going on, man?
I'm actually going to see you because I need to buy a stack of them plastic plates and cups for my grocery shop because I run low.
Boy, I stopped importing things since April 15th, you know. And I just routed the last batch, must be about like 3 weeks back, you know.
Man, do I usually have anything? What are you going on?
Check this, right? Under the new law, we ban all single-use plastics, so that the cups, plates, forks, spoons, and knives, all of that. Since April 15th, can't import none of them. Starting January 15, 2021, you can't manufacture them. April 15, 2021, you can't sell them. And after July 14, 2021, if you get catch with any other thing, you will get fined.
Me never know this. I guess I have to make some changes then. I have to make the customers know that anything not available. Anyways, bro. Thanks, man.
No problem, man. Take care.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
We are back and we are moving into our Christmas segment for today, and we are tackling one of the traditional elements to any Christmas in Belize, and that is black cake, black fruit cake, and also the white cake. So we have Karen Bailey, the owner of KP's Creations, who's with us live virtually, of course, along with her daughters Ashley and let me say the name wrong. Kaylin.
Yes.
All right, I got it right.
Ashley.
And the three Bailey ladies are going to talk us through tips and tricks for a delicious cake. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Hi,
Seafood
everyone.
greetings.
So my first question, I was asking you during the break. Karen, does Ashley and Kaylin normally help you in the kitchen, or they're just doing it for TV today?
No. They actually helps out.
Okay, that's good to know.
All right. And so we know that it's that time of year. Can you talk to us just about your cake recipes, what you like about them, what are your favorite Christmas treats, and what exactly, or why black cake and white fruit cake are special to you?
Okay, it's a traditional cake. I love to do the black cake during this Christmas season. I got the recipe down from my mom, which I try to keep, traditionally, and making everybody else feeling happy tasting my cake.
Okay. So you are going to share all the secrets today, or just some?
Some.
Okay. All right. So let's be clear. You do make cakes. You do make cakes for order. So if people don't want to go through this process, they can just order from you. And you do all different types of cakes. So
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, let's get started with our black cake then.
Okay. The first thing we need to know, make sure we have the right utensils, measuring cup for dry ingredients, measuring cup for wet ingredients, and then also the second thing you would need to make sure you have fresh ingredients. Like for instance, the baking powder is one of the most important thing in your cake. So you want to test that quickly to make sure that it's fresh.
And
what I do, I have a little bit of water here. I'll drop it in the water, and once it foams, then you know that the baking powder is fresh.
What? I've never done that before. So you mean if it starts to clump up, it's probably not a good sign?
Yeah, once it sinks down in the water and it don't float up, then you know that baking powder is not good.
Okay.
So you need fresh baking powder.
And I was just gonna say, you have to make sure you have all your ingredients first, because if you're like me, sometimes you just start to cook and then you realize, oh shucks, I don't have, I don't have this, I don't have that.
Believe me, it happens to me sometimes. If I don't have everything in front of me, and that would happen.
Well, okay, I still stuck on the baking powder, but Karen, thank you. Every baking disaster I've had so far, it was because of the baking powder.
Test your baking powder. Make sure it's fresh.
All right, thank you.
And then also you want to test your eggs. Make sure you have fresh eggs. One way to know that the eggs are fresh, you buy it from a store that turns over eggs a lot. They store it in cool areas, and you go home and you test it again. You could drop it in a thing of water, probably something deeper than this. And if the egg sinks down, it's okay. If it floats up, you know that egg is not good.
Okay.
All right. And then what I normally do, I break my eggs in a bowl first before I put it in my butter. So that's what I would normally do, no?
Yeah.
To make sure that the egg is fresh before you add it into your ingredient.
And also so you can take out shell if it gets...
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I will list out the ingredients you need.
Okay.
And we'll get started.
Yes.
Okay, so you need 1 cup room temperature butter. Everything should be room temperature. How to test your butter if it's room temperature? You could put your finger in it, and it has a dent like that.
Yeah.
That it's room temperature. So
butter.
You need 1 cup of butter.
Real butter.
Yes, butter. People tend to use stick butter. That's another tip, Marlene. People tend to use stick butter, but preferable butter, because in cakes you need the fat.
Yep.
And stick butter is like a spread.
Yeah.
And
It's
have
margarine.
less fat.
Yeah.
But if you're on the healthy side, then you can go ahead and use the stick butter.
Just won't taste the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 1 cup of butter, 2 cups of sugar, and then we need 3 cups of flour. This is the next tip, Marlene.
Okay. Is that brown sugar there? Sorry. Is that brown sugar, right?
This is brown sugar.
Okay.
Loose brown sugar.
Okay. Good.
And
flour.
Flour. Important. You gotta scoop the flour into the measuring cup.
Did you?
No.
This is the right way to measure it.
That's right.
And then you're gonna level it off.
That's
all right. And so we need 3 cups of this.
Okay, so spooning it in is to get the correct measurement, because when you scoop it out of the bag, like most people do, it packs it in more.
Yeah, you compact it and you're ending up putting more flour that is required.
Wow.
And that would probably make your cake heavy.
Then
dry.
Yeah. You know, Karen, I guess, you could just stop right now. The amount of tips you already give us, everybody's cake is supposed to be better.
Okay. I want to make sure you have a very good Christmas cake, Marlene. You know, everybody will be doing most of their thing home because of this COVID.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's my 3 cups of flour there.
Okay.
And, okay, we could begin. Let me just break the other 2 eggs.
So break the egg separate, and you don't have that disaster when a bad one goes into your butter.
Yeah.
And as Gavin says, you can fish out those shells.
Yeah, you don't want to be crunching through your Christmas cake.
So we have nice fresh eggs.
Right, and that's 3 eggs.
1 cup butter, 3 cups flour.
Oh, 4 eggs now.
4 eggs.
Yes, 4 eggs.
Okay.
2 cups sugar, brown sugar. All right.
And then now we have, I have here half teaspoon nutmeg, half teaspoon allspice, half teaspoon cinnamon. We have 1 tablespoon vanilla. And the next secret, Marlene, some jam. It could be any jam that you prefer. I prefer jam that have like the actual fruit in it. So whatever jam, you could put some jam in there.
Because it's a fruit cake. That makes so much sense. Yeah. Okay. So we are really getting the secrets here. Gavin, that means you can bake us cake now.
For sure. I don't mind, we can have a bake-off.
All right.
Okay, so we're gonna start putting our ingredients together. 1 cup. This is a 1 pound recipe.
Okay. All right.
I tend to kind of whip the butter a little bit before I add in the sugar.
Oh. So of course, if you're doing by hand, this is when you take all that time to beat that butter and sugar together, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you get that little
So I'm
workout.
gonna add my brown sugar now. Remember, this is 2 cups brown sugar with 1 cup butter.
And this is this is actually a pretty important step for the texture of the cake, correct? When you're combining the sugar and the butter and mixing it together.
Yeah, make sure you scrape down the sides.
How do you know when it's creamed enough?
Okay, when it gets a little lighter than that it is now, you do it for at least 10 minutes and then you scrape the sides again and another 10 minutes.
Okay.
Well, not 10, but less than 10 minutes. Because usually I do that for my white, but the black I do for less because they don't need that much mixing.
Okay. So let's talk while that is mixing. Let's talk about fruits. You said you add jam to your cake, but do you still add fruits? And what are your tips on selecting it?
This recipe is gonna be a fruit cake. Normally you would soak your fruits with whatever rum you want or wine, and this will plump up the fruits before you add it to your cake. And this is, I floured my fruit so that it doesn't sink to the bottom of the pan.
Yeah.
So these are my fruits. I just soak it with a little bit of rum.
Okay.
And that will be like the last thing to fold into your cake.
Okay. I noticed you have some beautiful sugar cookies there too. Did Ashley and Carlin make that?
Huh?
Did your daughters make those pretty cookies?
Actually, this is a new line. My daughter Kaylin, she's trying to manage my Instagram page now. I'm thankful for that. And she decided to do some Christmas cookies. So now you can order Christmas cookies.
Those are beautiful.
Yes, I like them.
And very festive.
Yeah. Check that out. Okay.
Wow.
You have your marketing team.
Yes, yes. One likes to decorate, which is Kaylin, and then Ashley, she likes to bake. So she would bake. Now she thinks that she's better than the teacher.
Uh-oh.
The student is better than the teacher.
Uh-oh. All right. Well, we volunteer to be the samplers to help you guys sort that out anytime.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna add my eggs one at a time.
That is some skill there.
I guess you've had a lot of practice. And what size cake does this make? How big of a cake?
This makes a 9-inch pan.
Okay.
Make sure you scrape it down again as usual, as it tends to stick in the bottom.
So we got the creamed butter and sugar, and then the eggs went in.
The butter and the sugar, and then we're gonna add our dry ingredients.
Okay.
I have nutmeg, allspice, and some cinnamon. And let's not forget our baking powder.
No, we never want to forget that in a cake.
And fresh baking powder,
Sure,
as we know.
level.
Now we know that you have to ensure, and we know how to make sure that it's fresh. That's a secret that you let us all, which we all appreciate.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it makes sense. I guess it makes sense because baking powder, sorry, is a raising agent, and you do that with yeast. So maybe it's the same thing that it's the same science behind it.
That's just completely changed my baking now, but thank you. All right, so now you've mixed in, and that's easier. So you mix in the spices with the flour and the baking powder. That's all together now.
So it's basically...
Everything is together.
So apart from the sugar, you're really mixing the dry ingredients separately from the wet, and then you combine.
Yes, and then you add them in.
Now, Karen, this is the forever debate, right? I know this from my mother's black cake missions. How do you get the right blackening for the cake? Because if it's not black enough, then people say it's not black cake, and sometimes that makes it too bitter. So what are the tricks there? Tell us.
Okay, the jam is a sweetener. I try to check, like, buy all different kind of blackening or browning. Some people call it browning.
Yeah.
And I tweak it and try to figure out which one is the best. And so far, I found one that I could stick with.
Okay.
And the jam helps. If it's kind of bitter, the jam kind of bring it out.
Okay.
The sweetness to it. So that's my little secret with the jam.
Okay. All right. Now we know. So I noticed you're not adding all the flour at once. Yeah.
I add half the flour, mix that up, scrape it again, and then add the other half.
Now I know when you first started off, this was all by hand, right?
Yeah. I can remember my mom doing it, and then we take turns to help her mix by hand.
In the big plastic containers, right?
Yeah.
That's what I grew up doing too.
Yeah.
So any tips for people who will be doing it by hand, if they would do this same process, just that it take a little longer?
Make sure the butter and sugar is cream enough.
So that's the one thing that you want to make sure you get done right if you're going by hand. And sometimes it takes long.
Yeah. Sometimes. Okay, so as you can see, I mixed up all the flour, and the last thing I'll put in my liquid, which is the vanilla, blackening, and my jam will be with the fruit.
So that batter is ready. There goes the essence. And there goes the secret to that black cake.
Yeah.
So when you see cakes that aren't very black, you feel you judge them a little bit?
Yes. When I see some brown cakes and I say, oh, they didn't get the right one.
All right. You're not alone. I've heard that many times.
You know, I'm like that too, but at the end of the day, the taste is really what matters, right?
Yeah.
You don't always have to judge the book by its cover.
Oh, look at that.
Always make sure you scrape the sides. You want everything to mix in well.
Okay. So that batter is going to mix up, and then the next step that's coming up is adding the fruits.
Yes.
and the jam.
Yeah.
And I want to say that you also do, I mean, people have different likes. So they have black fruit cake, all black cake with no fruits, and white cake with and without fruits.
Yes, yes, I do. I have.
And that's
and sometimes some people have special orders. They want to bring their own fruit.
Oh.
They have special fruits that they want in their cake. And I don't mind, tell them bring it. I'll put it in for you.
What is the most common order that you get? Is it black fruit, black without fruit, white plain, or white with fruit?
The white plain, and the black fruit.
Ah, that means I'm like everybody else then, because those two are my favorites.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm liking, I mean, I just like cake, period. So I'm just thinking but I think I like black with fruits.
Yeah.
Although I generally like if the fruits are like really crushed or smooth or blended. So that's my favorite way. But otherwise, I don't mind the solid fruits that much either.
Okay, this is finished. I'll add in my fruit and my jam.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't normally add rum into my cake.
You get my next question.
I
How
do it
much do you
afterwards.
soak it? Yeah.
Because the fruit is already soaked with whatever rum.
Yeah.
And then I put it on after.
So that flouring tip is important so that people who have had problems with the fruit sinking to the bottom, flouring the fruit helps.
What you do, you drain it. If you had it soaked, you drain it off. And you could use the same exact thing to pour back on the cake after it's done. So I have it here floured already. And I will fold it in to my cake.
Are you picky about your fruits? Are you picky about your fruits?
No, not really.
Okay. You keep it traditional there.
Yes, traditional. Fold it in.
So I do have to say we have some of Karen's cakes in front of us.
Yeah, and I mean just this when
And I'm adding the jam.
The smell of the cakes is great in here. That's the first thing I noticed.
There we go. So we got black fruit, we have plain black, and we have that plain white cake.
The jam, Marlene, when you're baking,
yes,
and you want to check to see if it's done, it might play a trick on you, and you prick that, and you say, "Oh, it's not done," but it's the jam. The jam have a wetness to it when you prick it. So to tell when the cake is done, you just look at the sides. Most of the time, you could prick it and it'll come out clean, but sometimes the jam tend to stick on the pick when you pull it out.
So you'll keep it a bit moist.
Yeah, because you don't want to overbake it, right?
Keep it moist.
Because black cake is supposed to be very dense, so you don't want to overbake it and make it dry. Nobody wants a dry cake.
You know a little about cake.
I was gonna say, you hear him, right? I'm watching the same thing.
Yep.
All right. So that's it.
Okay.
That's the recipe right there.
That's my recipe.
Oh, Karen, you have given more than I would have imagined, and I am so grateful for that. Once again, test your baking powder. Tip number 1. Separate your eggs in a separate bowl.
Cream your butter and sugar. Make sure that they're, that they're creamed enough before you add in the other ingredients. Do your wet and dry ingredients separately and then combine.
Yeah. Butter, not margarine.
Yep.
And at room temperature.
Make sure you flour your fruit so that they don't sink to the bottom.
Add jam. so that it can it can relieve some of the bitterness from the coloring that's in the cake as well.
Mm-hmm.
Did we miss any of your tips?
Yeah, you guys are good.
Miss Karen still at work. Look at that. Well, we are so grateful. We have the cakes in front of us. That means we get to sample now,
Yeah,
right? So which one are you going to dive into?
The one that's right in front of me, I think.
We're going to go traditional first, right? Okay.
That's the one I'm most excited about.
It's closer to you.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
All right.
You can see that it's very moist.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, here we go.
That's mine. And I can see that the fruits are nice and evenly distributed. Well, let me try and just do this. So yeah.
So remember that one is soaked in rum, so be careful.
Thank you, Ashley. Was it Ashley or Kaylin?
Ashley helped me bake, and Kaylin, she do decoration mostly, but Ashley is the one that thinks she's better than the teacher now.
This is really good.
So my pan is greased and flour.
I'm eyeing this white cake as well. Look at that. Ooh. All right, are you ready for white?
Mm-hmm.
There's cake.
No, I'm gonna
you see, we went completely quiet now.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be distracted until the end of the episode now.
Looking at you guys.
All right.
All right, let's sample the white.
I'm gonna go with. Oh yeah. The black cake.
The black cake is delicious, right?
The black cake is delicious.
Okay, so you put your batter in the pan, and the oven is already set to 350 degrees, and then you put it in. Okay.
Okay. So, Karen, we have our mouths full now with your cake. But I must say, it is absolutely delicious. It tastes like a black cake, but better. So, I know that definitely you have some secret ingredients there, but you told us so many tips, and we're grateful for that. Now, people, if they want to make orders, because not all of us are good in that kitchen, and some of us are better off not trying. If they want to make orders, what should we do?
If they could visit my Instagram page, KP's Creation, BZE. My daughter just helped me set that up. So just check us out. I would probably ask her to post up the recipe that they could, refer to if they don't remember.
All right. And we appreciate you sharing as many tips as you did with us this morning. And thank you. We're also going to have a delicious breakfast here at Channel 5.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we got the results of the recipe. And if you ever want to send some more cake for us to try or test or anything, you can feel free to send some our way.
All right, ladies. There you have the final product.
Yeah. And then remember the rum or the wine that you had drained off the fruits, you could actually apply it back on.
Oh, wow. So it's going to have that fruity flavor too.
Yep. And keep it nice and moist.
And you can, they have, I have a customer that had a cake, a whole air. Every now and then he take it and pour on a little bit of rum, have it sealed tight in the fridge, and it's wonderful.
It will last. Karen, Ashley, and Kaylin, thank you so much. You guys have been so lovely for showing us these tips and tricks, and I know you're a family team, so please, we wish you the best, stay safe, and of course, enjoy your Christmas.
Thank you too.
All right,
God,
bye.
stay safe as well. Bye.
All right, Gavin, are you finished now?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely. So we are going to take a short break. I might eat some more cake while we're doing that. And when we come back, we are just going to have our wrap up. So please stay tuned.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
It's a fact that your credit lasts longer when using Smart. During these times, we're all trying to find ways to cut costs and save the little resources we have. With Smart, it's easy to do that. It's a fact that with Smart, your credit lasts longer. You can call Smart to Smart and Smart to Digi using your promo credit, while with the other guy, you can only call OnNet, Digi, or BTL numbers. What does this mean? You get to call any national number using your promo credit. Your promo credit is free, so that call is also free. Know your facts. Don't be tricked by the other guy. Be smart and save your dollars.
And we are back, and if you're joining us now, we're just wrapping up the show after a bunch of great conversations and some really delicious cake. We had a great show today. Of course, we want to say thank you to our first guest, Dr. Lisa Johnson, to share her perspective on the ongoing COVID situation in Belize and also offering some insight into ways that we could possibly mitigate the impact and contain the spread. So thank you, Dr. Johnson, for coming in and sharing that.
We also want to thank our second panel for today. We had some COVID recovered patients as well as one COVID positive person, Matthew, Anna. We had Maritza and we had Nurse Bowman. And I think that it was really important that we get to see the faces behind all the numbers that we talk about.
Yeah.
We do know one thing. We know that the majority of people who get COVID are going to survive. Some are going to have symptoms, some are going to have worse symptoms than others. But we don't know who will get the worst, the more severe kind. And I think that's where a lot of people have fears about getting COVID-19. So it was important that we shared individual stories. I think one of the things that Maritza said is so critical, check in on people.
Yeah.
Check in on them because it is not easy to be isolated with that level of worry for your own health, for your loved one's health. So please be kind and recognize that this can really affect anyone.
Yeah.
All you can do is try to be as safe as you can when you move around. Don't go places that you don't need to go. Follow all the protocols that you know we are expected to follow. And if you do end up COVID-19 positive, or if you do develop symptoms, be responsible, isolate, and make sure you are doing so the entire time without any exceptions, because that way you can minimize the spread as we've been seeing.
Absolutely. And finally, we want to say thank you to Karen Bailey for coming in and showing us all of the tips and tricks behind making a delicious black cake. We also want to say a special thanks for providing us with samples of the cake so we can verify that this is actually a great way to make a delicious, delicious cake, because I demolished my slice of black cake in probably less than 5 minutes. The lots of tricks that she shared about baking. So if you are staying at home, as you should, you're not going out and you want to try to make your own black cake, maybe for the first time, we hope you enjoyed that conversation. But of course, if you want, you can also order cakes ready-made, delicious by Karen. You can contact her on Instagram and other social media. So thanks so much for that tutorial and for the cake.
All right, yeah, it is delicious. But that's all the time we have for today. Remember, if you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. Drop me a line at marlene_oye@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram
at OYE Belize.
And remember to tune in on tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
Start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your heart open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.